Okay, so we're recording now. It's March 15th at 5:32 p.m. So I'm going to call this meeting of the trustees of the Wellfleet Affordable Housing Trust to order. The meeting is being conducted by, hang on a second. The meeting is being conducted via Zoom video and in accordance with the governor's temporary suspension and enhancement to the open meeting law. The meeting may be recorded by the town. In fact, it is being recorded by the town. Anybody else desiring to record the meeting may do so only after notifying the chair and may not interfere with the conduct of the meeting in so doing. Okay, so with all of the administrivia out of the way, and we have Jim has also joined us, as has Marcus Springer. So announcements, anyone? Nope. I actually do have one. It's an item that's on the agenda, but about 45 minutes ago, I got an email from Sherry Goring at Mass Housing Partnership, and I'll read it to you. Hello, Harry. Congratulations. Wellfleet is one of the 3 communities that we have decided to support during the first round of MHP's intensive TA program for affordable housing trust funds. We are eager to support the town in building its affordable housing capacity. A formal announcement should go out tomorrow, and we will send a technical assistance award letter to be signed either by the chair of the select board or the town administrator later in the week. Additionally, we would like to schedule a meeting in the next couple of weeks to lay out a tentative scope and timeline for the next 6 months. Please let us know who should be included in that meeting so we can work on getting it scheduled. Thank you for applying. We look forward to working with you and your colleagues. Best, Shelley.
Wow.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Good.
Wow,
I
they picked
got
3
back
and-
an email that says I'll tell them in 45 minutes.
That's perfect. Oh, that's
Oh.
great. So they picked 3 instead of 2 communities.
So we'll talk about that in perhaps a little more detail later in the agenda when we get to it. Status on other housing related activities. I'll leave it, I guess, to the other participants to talk about the 95 Lawrence Road task force status. Local Housing Partnership had a meeting on February 25th. Wellfleet Housing Authority had a meeting. I attended these, along with a couple of other of you, attended the CDP's training on RFPs for housing projects, which I found to be a helpful refresher for me. And we have upcoming, let's see, Wellfleet Housing Authority and Local Housing Partnership joint meeting on the 18th at 5 o'clock. Outer Cape Peer Group hosted by the CDP on April 13th. And on April 16th, Affordable Housing Trust and Community Partnership Committee training also by the CDP. So that's all I have. Elaine or Gary, do you want to talk about the 95 Lawrence Road Task Force and the other?
Yeah, real quick, sure. On a Tuesday night at the select board meeting, they did approve the final draft of final RFP. There are still a few issues with the land disposition agreement and the ground lease. And so Maria and MHP and KP Law
Yep.
are gonna hammer those out. Whoa, sorry.
I'll pick it up for Elaine if you want. Whoops.
I knew that was gonna be a problem tonight.
So just as Elaine was saying, unfortunately, at the meeting we had with the select board, our consultant, not unfortunately, fortunately for her, her grandson was born that evening. So that took precedence. So we weren't able to resolve some of those, but there is a meeting hopefully being scheduled to resolve that. And we hope to issue the RFP before the end of the month, and issue it means to get it on the central registry before the end of the month, and then all the other solicitation efforts, the ads and the reach out to developers will follow from that.
That's progress.
Yep.
It
I
is.
also want to report two things. We attended the meeting of the wastewater committee, and they are planning on a warrant item for the June town meeting to include, at a minimum, the authorization for the borrowing for the the permit that would have to be done before we actually began the groundwater treatment facility to support the housing. So there is, they were discussing a range of items, but one of them included $150,000 for the ground permit.
Okay, I assume that, am I correct that there's no funding in that proposal for the actual construction of the wastewater facility?
Harry, when I saw it, there was only the permit and not the actual construction. At the select board meeting, they discussed, shouldn't we also include the cost of construction? And there is another wastewater meeting this week, and then there is a planned joint meeting with the select board to discuss that.
It strikes me that this housing proposal would be more attractive to developers if they knew for sure that there was a commitment by the town to actually fund the wastewater project itself.
We made that same observation, Harry, and we also said it would definitely strengthen our position vis-a-vis getting a MassWorks or other grant to show that the town had actually committed to, and again, it's an authorization to borrow. It's not a commitment to borrow that money at this time because it won't be needed for a year or two. But yes, there was discussion regarding that.
Right. Yep.
Right.
And the last thing I would report is that we have closed the applications for our buy down, where we give a grant of $175,000 for a first time qualified income buyer. We had more applicants than we've ever had, more qualified applicants than we've ever had, and we're actually going to have a lottery
Wow.
to select the person who will be given that grant, and that should be happening before the end of the month.
How long will those people have to buy something, Gary?
In theory, it is 4 months. In practice, we extend it. We have probably extended it as much as 9 months, I would say. Kathleen, given the marketplace, we're interested to see what the situation will be and whether we'll have to take other steps, to somehow increase the subsidy or do something else.
Right.
Sorry, Elaine, go ahead.
No, it's very important that you hear this and give us some advice on getting the word out.
Well, I mean, to me right now, it's almost disingenuous for, us to be awarding money to somebody when the cheapest house in Wellfleet is listed for $899 and there's only 5 houses for sale. So, I think it would be important that it be a longer period so they'd have the opportunity. I also think they should be counseled to be working with an experienced buyer's agent that can make sure they are eligible to have their offer really considered, because any property that comes on in that price range is going to be highly, highly competitive, and they may not even be able to compete because they're going to need it to appraise, and there's lots of people with cash. So, I mean, it's such a long conversation of such a broken system when here we're doing such a great thing with giving this big chunk of money to be able to help with that. But in the current market, there's just no way that's going to happen.
It can be a condo. if, I mean, I think some of the people that applied have a family and some are single. So depending on who gets it, it could be a condo. But, we have 4 qualified applicants. I know for sure 3 of them are Wellfletians. It seems a shame that,
It's terrible.
but we'll do everything we can.
So Kathleen, we have been talking about whether we could send out a letter to homeowners who may be considering selling their home to make some special accommodation for a first-time home buyer with the buy-down grant. See if maybe it's on the right ears. So we may do that. We may try to increase the subsidy by providing down payment assistance as well. But there's a limit, a practical limit. But Harry, relative to the trust, one of the things that we have discussed is since it takes a lot of effort for them to apply and for us to have, and we select an alternate in case the first person falls through for whatever reason. And we talked about not at the same time, but maybe sequentially funding another buy down and conceivably going to the trust for a request for that money, if in fact you get the funding from the CPA.
Okay, so that would be a future agenda item.
Yeah, yeah.
Just talking about what's happened in the last 3 weeks. So.
But you're right, Kathleen. It's a tough sell right now.
And could we maybe, as part of that conversation, just at the future meeting, discuss other options to supplementing? I mean, maybe we can get some sort of a private donation or something that could also help supplement the buy down or, money towards something for them. Some of the buy down money has been saved in the past for work that needs to be done. So maybe we can get that money separately so all of the money can be used. Or, I mean, I think we have to really stretch outside the box to be as creative as possible. Just because right now the times warrant that.
Okay, I'll add that as an agenda. It's a little off the reservation for today's agenda, but
Yeah.
I have another visitor. We've never had visitors before.
Welcome, visitors.
It's okay. It's good, actually.
I think the other thing we can report that's a positive, Kathleen, is we were included in a block grant that the state has awarded using federal money, and it's for both rehab of existing homes. It's also for childcare, and that we should be able to have that in place. They still have to select who's going to administer it here, but it's us and Brewster, and I can't remember the third town, Kathleen. Elaine, do you?
Dennis,
Brewster, and us, and that should be coming in the next couple of months. And I think it's a grant of up to $35,000, so that theoretically that same home buyer could apply.
That would be good.
$35,000 to augment that money.
Sure.
Okay, any other status items?
just real quick, I would like to say that at the joint meeting of the partnership and the Housing Authority this week, they will be reviewing the current draft of the proposed petitioned ADU accessory dwelling unit bylaw. It continues to be a living document. We only have a few more weeks to try to get it in shape, but we are hoping that we can make this happen.
Okay. Okay, second agenda item is,
Harry?
yes,
Harry, I have just want to give a brief update on the water system. It's associated with 95 Lawrence. So as you know, we had gotten the grant from Mass Works for installation of a new water main that was critical for the development of the 95 Lawrence project. And on that, we have the forms have been submitted to the Commonwealth for the environmental notification forms. We've gotten approval from them at this point to proceed. We've got DOT approval to begin test borings out on Route 6. And Environmental Partners expects to have the initial draft of the plan for this by the end of April. And our goal is to be able to get an RFP out for actually for the potential contractors associated with the project by the early summer.
Oh, great. Good
So
job.
that's where we are.
Okay. Next item, I had sent you shortly after the last meeting, KP's draft bylaw and draft declaration of trust. I did not send you my comments at that time because they are extensive and I didn't want to deliberate outside the meeting, but we need to talk about them. I promised Kathleen, Katie Klein, a response after this meeting. So I'm going to share my screen and pull up the bylaw first. Let's try this one. See how this works. Okay. Let's zip that down. And okay. So we can do this. I mean, I can just tell you what my comments are paragraph by paragraph as we go through it. You can see Katie Klein's comments are in yellow and mine are in blue. But it looked like they started off drafting this with the assumption that the town had not yet accepted Section 55C.
Mhm.
So the very first paragraph has two issues in my mind. One of them is that it speaks of accepting the statute in the future rather than in the past. And we had talked about also, I guess that's my only comment about the first paragraph. I don't know if anybody else has any other comments about that paragraph.
Harry, did you say they've agreed that that's not needed or no? Not yet.
The other related piece of information is that they, KP had also drafted special legislation to get the legislative repeal of the old housing trust. And the same issue surfaced. The first draft of the legislation that their first draft of the special act had the legislature setting up a new affordable housing trust for Wellfleet. And I pointed out to Katie that was already done. And I pointed out to Maria in sort of a sidebar conversation that I really wanted to rely on the town meeting vote because that gave us more flexibility. We wouldn't be in a situation of having to go back to the legislature anytime we wanted to change anything, because that's a long, painful process. So she did submit a revised draft that just had the language revoking the old trust, directing the transfer of the funds to the new trust, and noting that the new trust had already been established by town meeting action. And I sent her back an email that said, that's, I think, exactly what we need.
Okay.
So I think that this issue is not going to be a big issue with them because we've already corrected it on one document. We just have two more to go. My next comment, which also matches, pairs up with Katie Klein's comment, is about the trust purposes. We have talked at several meetings about the fact that the Community Preservation Act allows for the support of housing in addition to the language for providing for the creation and preservation of affordable housing. So that was one issue. And then the second one is we have talked about wanting to be able to support housing for people up to 125% of area median income. And so I flagged both of those items, excuse me, here. And her comment, Katie's comment about support above AMI, she didn't say you can't do it. She just said it might be prudent to ensure that other boards like the select board are in agreement. I'm not terribly concerned about that issue. I'm sure that we can defend that position. So in terms of purposes, those are my comments. Does anybody have anything else that they see in either the purposes provision or the before that?
All right, I think the kind of number isn't 125%, 120 is more what's considered workforce housing.
Okay.
Um,
You
and
could
we
very
are-
well be correct. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to correct my comments to reflect what we discuss here. So it will go back not as me. So I'll change that to 120%. In terms of tenure of trustees and appointment, no real issues here. Well, two issues. One of them is that trustees have already been appointed, so the language on the initial appointment of trustees needs to really be changed to reflect the fact that the select board is the appointing authority, but there's no need to appoint an initial board of trustees because there already is one.
Mhm.
The other thing is that we had discussed at a couple of meetings about a residency requirement. And the last sentence of this paragraph says, only persons who are residents of the town of Wellfleet shall be eligible to hold the office of trustee. Any trustee who ceases to be a resident shall cease to be a trustee. Do we want to leave that, or do we want to comment on it and just do we want that language to stay in this bylaw draft, I guess is the question.
I thought we talked about opening it to non-residents as well.
We did, and the basis for that was there might be expertise out there that we don't have that would be
Correct.
valuable.
Correct.
So, so
We
maybe
A percentage or a number of, that has to be residents?
we could also trust the select board.
I think Mike had some, I think he was thinking if we did this, he might want the number that would be the town residents as opposed to seasonal, but
I feel like for some reason I remember him saying 2, but I could be making that up.
Neither my notes or my recollection is that detailed.
yeah. I mean, would this be up, do you think, to the town to decide to allow this? I mean, what do our bylaws, our other bylaws say about?
They are generally silent in most cases. I'm not aware of any actual legal prohibition of appointing non-residents to town boards and commissions, and there is precedent for Wellfleet having done that on at least a few occasions in the past.
In December, we had noted a majority of the trustees shall be Wellfleet residents and their position as trustee shall become vacant upon removal from Wellfleet. And then the question was, should they be registered voters instead?
I'm comfortable with resident. It's much harder to police because Residency is a very kind of elastic concept. We did have a gentleman who had a boat with a mooring out in the harbor who said his Wellfleet address was 1 Commercial Street, and he was a registered voter, briefly. So maybe what I'll do is this comment that says, let's see, we'll delete this comment and we'll replace it with majority of trustees. Insert comment. That reflect what, except I can't spell majority, so I can't type it.
Should we say shall instead of should? Semantics.
Yes. There are some weird court cases that say shall, even though it sounds mandatory, isn't really mandatory, and you should use must.
Oh, okay.
It's really weird, but everybody uses may and shall.
Uh-huh.
But there've been a couple odd court cases out there that come down differently. So those were the only comments I had about trustees' tenure and appointments. Anybody else want
Harry,
to?
in the other document, they list the representatives from different committees.
Yeah, I'll
And-
get to that document after we do this one.
Okay, I just want to say, does it have to true up?
It does, and I flagged that, so we won't miss it. Let's see. I really didn't have much else down until we got down to meetings of the trust. And we had discussed, rather than requiring monthly meetings, just have quarterly meetings with additional meetings at the call of the chair. Just because I don't want to have a meeting if there's nothing to talk about.
Agreed.
Although that's unlikely to be the case ever.
For the next couple of years, I think that's right.
Mhm.
I mean, it's a little easier to keep track of when it's once a month.
It is. Actually, I almost blew it with this meeting. It was like 3 o'clock on Thursday when I realized I had to post the agenda, and I know they all go home at 4.
Right.
But fortunately, they got it done for me.
Right.
So,
I don't think it hurts to say a minimum, though. Means you can have more, right?
yeah,
Right.
Oh,
Yeah.
sure, that works.
yeah, and that's what the comment says. Minimum frequency, quarterly, with the freedom to meet as necessary to conduct trust business. So is that okay, what I've done on meetings of the trust? Anybody want to do something different there?
Yeah, that works.
Fine.
Okay.
Fine.
On powers of the trustees, to the extent we're lobbying for enlarging the trust's authority to do things, specifically to support affordable housing and to support workforce housing, I would suggest that the first paragraph in chapter 4 should also include reference to this bylaw as authorizing, and in addition to the statute, because we're looking for some things that aren't specifically in the statute.
Like what?
Well, support of affordable housing. The statute talks about creating and maintaining, but not supporting. And the other one is workforce housing, which the statute doesn't speak to at all.
A little further up, you said something about preservation of affordable housing, which I like that concept also.
Okay, so let's go back up here. That is up here, yeah. Creation and preservation, that comes from the statute.
Mhm.
And so what I was lobbying for was also including support per Elaine's comment, and also including up to 120% of AMI per the discussion that Mike led.
Yep.
Mhm. That's
Okay,
good.
so we're back down here. The powers that are in paragraphs A through whatever the last paragraph is are lifted directly from the statute.
Okay.
And I think that they're fine. The only comment I had was Mass Housing Partnership recommends that language be included specifically authorizing the trust to enter into agreements with the local CPC. Arguably, that's broadly covered by the broad language about authority to execute, acknowledge, and deliver contracts. But that's a suggestion from Mass Housing Partnership,
Mhm.
and I don't think it hurts to include it.
I mean, if the trust is going to be making proposals, the town does have every proposer that gets funded sign a
Mhm.
contract, so.
Yeah, and the only other comment I had about this draft bylaw, I think, was begging that our annual report not be due on December 31st,
Right.
just because, yep,
Right.
I would sit there New Year's
More
Eve
sense.
chronicling everything we did up until 5 o'clock that day.
Yeah.
Doesn't make sense.
Usually
right.
you have till
Yes, Gary.
mid-January.
Just above this, if you scroll up, does it
Yep.
require a separate audit of the trust, separate from the town audit?
That's what the statute says.
And I question that both from an expense and as a practical matter, the town is the accounting for the trust accounts.
Yeah. Um, You're right, and I don't know whether we can rely on the town's audit as being sufficient. I think by statute, the town's only required to do an audit every other year. Wellfleet has done one every year as a matter of good business practice. Let's see, let me back up. Okay, this is custodian of funds. Let me add a comment. If I can figure out where, okay, come on. And, there we go, sorry. And just ask the question. We'll just raise that as a question. Let's see. How's my spelling? Yeah, trustee instead of trust. Sorry. Is that okay, Gary? Is that flag the
Yeah,
question?
I mean, it's just that I would hate to codify the requirement for an audit.
Yeah.
It would be both expensive and unnecessary.
Oh, yeah. I think the town's auditing costs are around $30,000 if memory
Yeah.
serves me. And yeah, I agree. Okay, so that was all I had on the bylaw. Does anybody have anything else on the bylaw that they'd want to talk about? If not, I'll send it back to Katie Klein, just with a note that's saying that all of the comments here, even though they're mine, are reflective of what we discussed at our meeting. Let me save that. And let me close that. And let's go to, yep. back to the declaration of trust next. That's the next item on the agenda. A lot of what's in here, I'm pilot error. There we go. So similar set of comments on trust purposes. We still need to add creation, preservation, and support.
Mhm.
Oh, what's going on here? And we also want support and
Harry,
yep,
one cautionary note is that we can stretch the definition of moderate to include up to 120%. If we introduce workforce housing as a new concept,
Yeah.
you're really going outside of the structure of the legislation itself, which is for a low and moderate.
yes, I agree.
So I'm not sure. I think we could stretch it to 120,
Yep.
but to really make workforce a separate entity, a separate concept,
Mhm.
may be tricky within the scope of the legislation.
Okay,
Would we be getting any guidance on this from MHP?
Yeah,
go ahead.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, we sent them a question on this, and they said basically you could get away with 120.
Okay.
Okay. Well, why don't I just not use the word workforce there and
Yeah, that's all. It just makes me.
say up to 120.
Yeah.
You had mentioned, Gary, about the makeup of the Board of Trustees.
Yeah, down here, it's the tenure.
Yeah, Article 3rd, tenure of trustees.
Right.
I kind of agree with you. I'd kind of like to say one member of the select board is required by 55C. The remaining trustees, qualifications determined by the select board, and just get rid of this kind of siloing of positions.
I agree.
I
Yeah.
agree.
I agree.
Mhm.
Yep.
The other
Okay.
thing in here, it has language about the first appointees being, 2 of them being for 1 year, and
Yeah,
that's out of
Yeah.
whack with what we did.
yeah, okay. I stuck a comment in there. It just wasn't up on the screen yet. So we don't need,
Just strike this whole thing. The trustees shall be appointed by the select board.
And should be one member of the select board, right?
yeah, that's required by statute. And also, I just noticed, there shall be no less than 5 nor more than,
Right.
we're missing a word here.
Oop.
7? So let's maybe what we should just say here. Let's see. And just have this whole thing go here.
That works.
Yep. Let's see whether I've. I don't know whether I've got, no. That was not good. Yeah. I'll just put strike through. Okay. This comment about the land registration office, that's just mechanical. I've just, the process is a pain, but it's necessary if we're dealing with property that has a land court title. It just is what it is. So, you know. In Article 4, meetings of the trust, again, I'm suggesting, and we had discussed previously, quarterly and at the call of the chair.
Mhm.
Do we want to allow some number of trustees other than the chair to call a meeting? I'm certainly okay with that. If you guys, if there's a palace revolt and you don't like the chair,
So what if you're not the chair?
well, you know, I could go around the bend, who knows?
Yeah.
Doesn't seem necessary.
I don't think it's really necessary, but you
Well,
know,
what if the chair is not available?
Yeah,
or
so-
the chair has a stroke or, you know, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, it's good to just have the option that, you know. a
Okay, so pick a number.
majority-
Pick a number.
I said a majority, but should we say 3?
Okay. I'd say 2 or
What's
3.
quorum?
Quorum?
no, quorum would be 4.
That's
too
right.
many. That's too many.
That's kind of a lot, because if you have a trustee that's
Okay.
not capable of performing, the
Yeah,
quorum is still
almost
4, and you only
everybody.
have 6 people that can act.
Okay,
I'd go with either 2 or 3.
I would say 2.
Okay, everybody okay with that?
Sure.
Yeah,
Sure.
It's not like we're meeting happy.
No, and you know, you think about petitioned articles for an annual town meeting, it only takes 10 voters,
Right.
and there are 1,600 of us. By 2. Okay, here's kind of where I really had an issue here. In paragraphs B and C, and this language shows up elsewhere. And the basis of my comment is as follows. First of all, that limitation on action is not present in the existing trust, number 1. Number 2, it's not present in the statute. Number 3, the whole purpose of having this trust is so that we can be nimble. And it's difficult enough if we've got to schedule a meeting with the open meeting law constraints. If we then have to get on a select board agenda and make the case to them to spend more than $50,000, it defeats the whole purpose of.
I agree. The
having
property
this
would be
trust.
sold by then.
Yeah. So that I didn't type my own comments in here, but I think that this is a bad idea.
Agreed.
Agreed.
Mhm. Me, yep.
Unless you make it $50 million.
Mm,
Elaine.
geez.
I like the sound of that, Elaine.
Mm, I don't know if you can read it. Oh, my good word. Trustees are concerned that this language is not present in 55C or in the present housing trust and could significantly delay, oh, come on, this is,
Trustability.
it could significantly delay the trust's ability to respond to opportunities. Trustees recommend removal of this language. GUA, oh, come on. Throughout. Okay, so there's the full comment. That, okay,
Excellent.
Good.
okay. Same thing for sale, lease, exchange, transfer, or conveyance.
Mhm.
Mhm. Yep.
Yep. Oops.
And maybe you want to carry it down to K also, Harry.
Yep. Yeah, that's why I used the word throughout. I stuck in paragraph D a reference to agreements with the CPC. And I wonder if we should, I don't really think we need to do this, but does it make sense to also include agencies of the Commonwealth? I mean, there is a general power to contract in here.
Right.
Maybe we should just leave it to the CPC because that's what MHP's recommendation is. Is that all right?
Yes.
Okay, we'll remove the comment about state agencies and just leave it with. Okay, what else did I have? Oh, okay. The comment is same. I have to retype the thing. As custodian, yeah, see, this is another one, custodian of funds. Treasurer shall issue checks or transfer monies as directed by the trustees and approved by the select board.
Oh, not the purpose of the trust.
They must be afraid we're gonna get too much power.
Well, I think, you know, they're so used to representing the select board and doing this that, you know, that's their, you know, how do we ensure that the select board has control over this entity that they've created? And that's
Right.
not the purpose of this.
Right. Out it goes.
Okay, that's not terrible. I never learned how to touch type, so this has all been.
We're all impressed with what you're doing, Harry, believe
you
me.
know. Okay, annual report, January, please.
So, Harry, on
Yeah.
the Article 8, it also talked about the annual audit.
Yep.
Do we need to ask that to be?
Yeah, let me insert the comment again about the question. Yep, INCUDE. That's where it is. Okay. Yep. Annual report, same comment about January, please.
Mhm.
And this this last one, this is me. Record to be conclusive, certificate as to facts. Generally with trusts, when you're dealing with real estate, people dealing with the trust are going to want a certificate from a trustee as to the fact that the trustee is authorized to do this and that John Doe and Jane Doe and Richard Roe are all trustees and so forth. I think it might be useful if, in addition to that, the town clerk could be a place where someone could go to at least get a certificate as to who the trustees are, just as kind of a belt and suspenders thing, not require it, but also say that if you want to know, if you want additional assurances that the certificates you're getting are actually from trustees, that you can go to the town clerk and get a certificate. So that's, so that's what I had on the Declaration of Trust. Is there anything that you guys saw that I didn't see or that you would like to go in a different direction on?
I think you did great. I'm curious, will KP Law push back about any of this and go to the select board?
Well, I don't know, but I'm certainly prepared to argue our case.
And I think they'd be fine with it, but
Yeah,
it's interesting, huh?
yeah.
Yeah.
And it is the Declaration of Trust is in particular is a document that we sign,
Mhm.
and we technically could put in it whatever we pleased.
Harry, the declaration doesn't go to the voters at town meeting. It's only the bylaw. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
I have a question on it, Harry.
Yep.
Is there any other instance where a board other than the select board has the authority to bind the town with respect to, say, purchase or sale of property?
To my knowledge, Jim, no. And in fact, curiously, the charter specifically strips the Board of Water Commissioners of the statutory authority to acquire property by eminent domain.
Right.
So I'm not aware of any other town board, body, or commission that has the authority to bind the town contractually or to acquire or dispose of property. The housing authority is a separate political entity, so it has some inherent powers of its own. That would be the closest thing.
I'm just thinking that may be the reason that KP put all of that in there with respect to all of those provisions for requiring select board approval.
You may in fact be right. But I guess I would argue that the whole purpose of having this trust is to deal with the fact that towns are ponderous entities in terms of responding to opportunities, and that without a trust like this, opportunities will be consistently missed.
I'm not refuting that. I'm just saying that I'm just wondering why that all got in there. That's it.
Well, I think that the mindset is we're counsel to the Board of Selectmen and we're going to protect the board. So I just think we have to push back a little bit. That's all.
Okay.
We'll see what happens.
Can't hurt.
Anything else on these documents?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope.
Okay, so we're going to stop screen sharing. Okay, I'm back.
Excellent.
Item three, no, this is item, we did item three, I'm sorry. Item 4, status of transfer of affordable housing trust account balances to trust. I have nothing new on that. So I don't know how the audit is progressing, but it's still, she had originally spoken in terms of the end of March, and we're not there yet. So Housing action plan. So this is where I guess the news that we were successful, and kudos to Gary and Elaine and CDP in particular for jumping on this on very short notice and getting it done. That we were successful in being awarded this grant. So one question is who we want to identify to Shelley as the people she should work with on this.
You raising your hand, Elaine?
No, I'm wondering if she might, I'm wondering if she might have a suggestion.
I was gonna say, well, maybe we can wait for maybe we should schedule a whole trust meeting with her and then talk about, do we need a work group?
I think that's a great idea.
We
But-
can do that. I suspect that we're probably going to want somebody from the LHP and somebody from the Housing Authority, as well as somebody from the trust as a working group. And then I don't know how much more than that you want to have, because, you know, we'll have a horse designed by a committee looking like a camel if we're not careful.
I do like the input we get though from the people that haven't been serving on the housing committees for years too. It's a fresh
Mhm.
look at things too.
Yeah.
So,
No, I'm certainly willing to participate if you would like me to.
of course.
Elaine, I have a question about definitions, because
Mhm.
I noticed it in the minutes too. An action plan is a specific thing. It's not a generic. And we have a production plan, but not an action plan, and a non-certified production. What do we have now?
We have a certified housing. I'll have to find a letter from the state. It's certified, but it's not some other level of certified.
And is it in fact an action plan, or is it a production plan?
It's supposed to be a needs assessment and production plan.
Right.
I mean,
so
there are
that-
certainly action items in it.
right.
I think this action plan is a much different animal
Yeah, I
that
think
will
so
include,
too. Right.
yeah, yeah.
I think when Shelley comes, maybe we should ask her that specifically, is, you know, what is the definition? What are we striving towards?
Can you read her language again of what she asked?
Yes. Actually, I can show it to you. How's that?
All right.
Yeah. Okay, here we go. Here's the email that came in at 4:45 today.
Wow.
But the confetti is from her, not from me. I'm not capable of doing that.
Formal announcement.
Yeah, I think our current plan is needs assessment, and it does speak
Oh,
to
in that meeting.
strategies, but it's not all that detailed. You know, it's not, you know, we should do A, B, C, and D, and we need $10 million to do it. Where are we going to get it?
She's just asking who should be in that first meeting, basically,
Right.
right? Yeah. So,
I think we should start with the whole group and then work from there.
well,
The whole group meaning
The trust.
the trust.
well, and I would say somebody from the CDP, because I think we may end up relying on them to
Yeah.
do a bit of the legwork for us. But
Yeah, I would suggest that it be less than a quorum of the trust, so that you don't end up having to, you know, post these things.
Uh-huh.
mhm.
Good
Maybe-
point.
Maybe,
Otherwise, it'll just never get done. It's just too cumbersome.
so if we
So
have
I
less than a
would pick, you know, 2 or 3 people max to do this.
yeah, I think it would be great to have less than a quorum from the trust, from the housing authority, from the partnership, and somebody from CDP.
Maybe I should get back to her and ask her how large a group she's contemplating. And let's kind of put together a sort of a layered response here. So if she says 3 people, who are the 3 people? If she says 2 people from the trust, who are the 2 people? And she says 1 person, who gets the prize?
And maybe work out a date that works for you and her to propose.
I'm pretty flexible at this point because my course is not offered this semester, so my previous scheduling impediments are pretty much gone. So my suggestion is we pick 3 people. And of those 3, we pick 2, and of those 2, we pick 1, so that we can be responsive to whatever she suggests.
Three people overall, or 3 people from the trust.
I'd say 3, yeah, let's identify 3 people from the trust who are willing to work on this, but also be willing to substitute a lesser number if she says that's going to be too big a group to work with.
What kind of a time commitment are we thinking this
I have
is?
no idea, but it's a
6 months.
month project, so it's not a forever project.
No, I know. I'm just part of me is thinking about CDP because we pay them for their time, right?
We do.
And so if they're coming to a lot of meetings, is that the best use of their time?
Or our money.
Or our money? That's more to the point.
Yeah, maybe it would be important to see how much work this is going to be, because I do have to say, from paying CDP and our former housing coordinator, that was almost the only way we really got a lot done. That's how we got this grant.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
I just think we're being premature since we don't know what the time demands are and what
Right.
the end product is. If we have the first meeting with her, then we can figure out how many people, for how long, how much money we want to spend on it.
And who might be best suited to do it then.
Exactly, right. We don't exactly know yet.
And even if we have to post one meeting to make that happen, it doesn't mean going forward, everything has to be posted.
That's okay.
Mhm.
The other thing, Harry, is that we have such overlap in membership that we could pick different people from the partnership, the trust, and the housing authority, and have a group of half a dozen people.
Absolutely right. Yep.
Do we have and maybe somebody else has a better idea of what we really hope to accomplish with this?
I think that's
Well-
why we need that first meeting.
Okay.
yeah.
Well-
Well, I mean, the intent of the grant as it was written to help clarify and delineate the roles of all 3 housing groups and then
Mhm.
potentially frame how an action plan would be done. That's kind of how I would summarize.
I suggested to Elaine, we don't need the partnership, and she suggested to me, we don't need the housing authority.
Yeah, right. I see where you're going with this.
Well, that's the thing is I think that, some coordination, whether it's dividing the responsibilities or saying, we don't need the LHP anymore, or, I don't know. And I'm not suggesting that, by the way.
No, exactly right.
Right.
But, that's kind of what the subject of discussion is
Right.
how to, what troops do we need to mobilize and what are we mobilizing them to do?
Mhm.
On the message that said it was launching the program, it says they want to invest a concentrated amount of time over the next 6 months, March to August, to either assist in the creation of a municipal affordable housing trust or support an existing trust. They will help us develop local infrastructure to support the creation and preservation of affordable housing.
I think it's kind of the latter part of that.
Yeah, since we already exist.
Exactly.
It also says a limited financial award may be available.
Yeah, this is not a lot of money. I don't recall exactly how much because I haven't seen the award letter, but it's, I don't know.
About the expertise, isn't it?
Yeah, it's more
It's not multiple tens of thousands of dollars or anything, I don't believe.
yeah, it's more the technical assistance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
All right.
Okay, so Harry and who else for the first meeting?
You know, I still think that the idea of an initial meeting to where we're sort of all on the same page is not a bad idea.
Well, let me, I'll get back to her since I ended up being, and I see that Palinda was copied on this too, so the CDP knows about it. Let me get back, I'll get back to her and suggest that I can make all of the trustees available or a lesser number depending on her guidance.
That's good.
Good.
And then I'll round up volunteers depending on what she says.
And maybe also you could find out when she says intensive work over the next 6 months, what that really would mean in terms of a commitment for people.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Don't they know it's the summer?
I don't think there's any off season here anymore.
Well, wasn't this year, but
Okay. So we'll leave it flexible like that for now.
Mhm.
Sounds good.
Okay. Anything else on this item? Housing action plan, coordination with housing authority and LHP? No.
Just one note, Harry, we had that joint meeting of the Housing Authority and the partnership on Thursday. So if you actually get a response back from her and we need to appoint someone from each of those groups, let us know.
Yeah. Thursday is today is the 15th, the 18th? Yes,
Mhm.
it's the 18th. Okay. Approval of donations, solicitation proposal, Housing Angels. I thought we had voted on this, but was there a need to go back and something
I'll
more?
just say one thing, which is Gary had asked me to contact Darren Witherspoon, who's for anybody who doesn't know him, he's a local graphic artist, and he prepared a brochure for us when we were sort of introducing Lawrence Road and the need for it. And he did a really great job. So anyway, I did contact him, and he's more than willing and happy. I said, that we would pay him, so we have to pay him. And that we probably wouldn't be doing anything until after town meeting, till we find out about the vote on the ADU. But I just want to put it out there as that's a future commitment. Financial commitment. I mean, that's not huge, but.
No. Anything else here? Okay, let's see. Annual town meeting warrant items. Well, Affordable Housing Trust bylaw we've talked about. Allocation of short-term rental tax receipts to the trust. Where are we on that?
What would we have to do to have something put on?
Well, I guess there are two pieces. One of them is an advocacy piece. How do we support a request for basically identifying these funds as for the trust only? And two, what do we need in the way of a document to ask town meeting to approve? So I think that there are two pieces I see.
Harry,
Yes, Gary.
the wastewater committee brought up the same short-term rental as a source for supporting wastewater. And I think that actually is specific to the legislation that created, or at least something with respect to use for wastewater. And I think we could make common cause with them. So when you say exclusively for the use of the trust, we may have to work on some deal with them.
Yep. That makes sense.
I'd have to share.
Everybody's- Go ahead, Sharon.
I was just gonna say, we might have to share.
Did everybody see the article in I think it was the Independent, that kind of spelled out the last 2 quarters of short-term rental
Yes,
money? So it seems as if there is more money than what, we were only talking about that 1 quarter
Right.
Mhm.
that had been identified prior. So that's encouraging.
Mhm. Right.
this is.
Yeah, there, and again, my recollection is that there is language in that short-term rental tax legislation that sequesters some for wastewater. I thought that that was for, the countywide response to that lawsuit that was filed that forced the county to do something. And I don't know whether that is duplicative of what the wastewater committee here is doing, or whether there are additional local initiatives that aren't part of that, so I don't even know what the ground rules are yet.
Well, certainly the wastewater is a piece of the housing. I mean,
Yes,
they're hand in hand.
In some cases, Sharon, that's certainly true. In other cases, they really have some other agenda items that they were looking to fund from the same pocketbook. So, but for the most part,
No,
I
I'm
think,
just saying,
I'm sorry.
sorry.
No,
No,
yeah, I
was
think
I was just saying, like, the big objection to ADUs is the whole septic thing. So,
Right, right.
uh,
It does feel like it's a timely discussion and we should try to bring it before the town somehow,
mhm.
because we're losing ground.
Does it require town meeting action?
I think to have any permanence, it should, because otherwise it becomes a fund that's available every time there's a budget discussion. And I don't know what, I think that there have been fairly recent votes to sequester shellfishing license fees to a fund. I know probably a long time ago, although I've never been able to identify it, there must have been a vote to limit or allocate the beach sticker receipts to a beach fund, because we do have a beach fund, and ambulance receipts to an ambulance fund.
Mhm.
So, I mean, there are other funds out there, so there must be a mechanism. I just don't know what it is, because
I thought that Mike said we needed to go to the select board.
okay, well,
And I thought that he mentioned something about there was already a conversation starting to happen and that it would be prudent for us to make that request of them. And I feel like I also thought he said he would be that conduit for us.
yep.
I think, we are working on the advocacy piece and should have that together
Mhm.
soon.
No,
All
it
I'm
would-
thinking is that if in fact we have to go to town meeting, so we have to go pretty soon to the select board, and we
Mhm.
might just make a request.
Why not?
Now, yeah, I mean, what do we have? And we can see what legs it has, and then we can go talk about how do we sell it if in fact it gets supported at the select board level.
I think Julian Sear was quoted as saying he thinks that money should go. Maybe could he advise us? Could we approach him and
We can always.
you know the
we can-
mechanism?
Do we
Yeah.
think that we are going to have to sell it hard to the selectmen, or we should just present the request to the select board and then go from there?
I think we should, I agree with you, Kathleen, that why don't we just ask for, I don't know what the right number is, but let's ask that 50% of the receipts from the short-term rental tax go into the trust for the purpose of affordable housing development.
I think we should ask for more than
Yeah,
50%.
I don't know what the right percentage is, but I think let's make a specific request and that will get the ball rolling.
Right.
I think after hearing the wastewater committee talk too, I think asking for all of it isn't kind of gonna fly.
It may not fly and you know, you have to think about what you ask for, but at the same time, you don't want to negotiate yourself out of
Yeah.
something that, you know, that you could
get.
get. You know, it's like, you know, what do you offer when you're going to buy a house?
Not what you're going to pay.
Little, and you tick off the seller. You offer
Right.
too much.
In this
more-
marketplace, you have to pay above that.
And
No,
yeah,
well, that's why I think we need to ask for more than half, because I think at the very least, we should get half. And I think if we,
right.
by asking for half, we might get less. So
Okay, what's the right number?
It's just good old horse trading.
No, I don't think any problem. Okay, where do we set the bar is the only question.
I'd ask for 3/4 of it or 80% of it, somewhere in there,
Okay,
I like it, Harry.
and be
Yeah.
prepared to negotiate.
80%.
Okay. Is this something we want to vote on?
I was gonna say, we need a motion.
I think we should. To, let's see, motion. What we want to do is we want to present a request to the selectmen to allocate 80% of the receipts from the short-term rental tax to the Affordable Housing Trust for supportive housing. And I don't want to be more specific than that because we've said before that, you know, the 80% of AMI and 100% of AMI have, you know, can compete for CPA funds. But the people up in the 120% of AMI have no source of funding at all.
Right.
So I wouldn't be specific here.
Agreed.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm gonna have to get this off the exact language of the minutes the motion when I go back to do the recording, because I do these minutes from listening to the recording. So is there any discussion on that?
Has it been moved and seconded?
No, it hasn't actually.
So Harry, you are moving it.
I am moving it.
I can.
I will second it.
All right, good. Kathleen will second.
A discussion? No, okay. Roll call. Okay, we ready to vote? Okay,
Yep.
Kathleen,
Aye.
Sharon,
Aye.
Gary,
Aye.
Lane,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
chair votes aye. That's the order you are on my screen. There's nothing magic about it. What about I didn't specifically list the ADU here, but is that something where at some point there'll be a draft that will be stable enough so that we can consider supporting it?
So that we're taking, that's the joint meetings this week. We've sent out a draft. That stable enough is a relative word, so.
Yes, understood.
It's, it sort of changes frequently, but I think the basics are set. We're having a conversation with Bruce Beerhands on Wednesday,
Mhm.
and
Oh, good.
we have some specific legal questions for him that we've laid
Mhm.
out, and he and someone who's working with him, who is the chair of the ZBA in Falmouth, they're sort of gathering a little bit of information, like other bylaws and things like that. So they'll take a look at it, and hopefully by the time of the partnership and the housing authority meeting, we'll feel more confident.
I'm
Happy to
glad
send it to you. I'm happy to send it to you anytime you want.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that because, zoning bylaws are really a place where amateur hour drafting can be especially pernicious.
Yes,
And
well,
zoning case law is all over the place, and it requires somebody with some experience to get a bylaw that's not going to be either abused or too restrictive to accomplish its purpose. And sometimes you can do both at the same time.
agreed.
Harry,
Okay,
a
go
question
ahead.
came up relative to the ADU that is process in nature. Is it better to have it sponsored by a petition article or by the select board proposing it? Does it have more validity or more weight or?
Don't think it matters a great deal. With an article sponsored by the select board, you are subject to the whims of the select board, and if they decide for some reason to pull it, you kind of don't have any recourse. Petitioned articles, there is a school of thought that says they have to go on the warrant exactly the way they're presented, typos, crimes against the English language, included. The statute says the selectmen shall insert in the warrant any matter, the subject of which is requested in a petitioned article. So I don't think they have to include the exact language. The practice seems to be, if they don't like the language, they draft their own version and they put both in. But there's no harm, no foul from a petitioned article to do this.
Thank you.
That's an interesting statement there.
Right.
It's just my personal perspective from
Yeah.
watching for a long time.
Would you like me to send you a draft? The draft
Absolutely.
we've got now? Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, I think we've refrained because we don't want to overburden you.
No, I have time I have some time.
Well, it's much appreciated.
Okay.
Yes, and please do join us at 5 o'clock on Thursday. The link is on the town website.
Yep, I saw that. I got to get it on my calendar before I forget. That seems to be an issue lately. Anything else on town meeting? Okay. I had on here land acquisition strategy, including town land within the seashore, state and federally owned property. I don't have anything to offer on that. And we've been at it for an hour and a half now.
Right.
I was going to say maybe for another meeting.
I think
Okay.
that might factor into our action plan or the
Yeah.
ideas we keep advancing. Yeah.
Kathleen, I only have one question relative to this acquisition. Someone said that one of the old multifamily homes is for sale in Wellfleet.
Not yet. Might be.
Might be.
Mhm.
And then the question would be, is that the kind of thing that the trust would be interested in, since they're so unique and they are multifamily in nature? Have you heard anything, Kathleen, about it?
Does somebody want to tell me specifically what property?
I don't know.
I think it's Maya and Thor's, isn't it?
Yeah.
Um,
Briar Lane and
If it's Maya and Thor's, there's already a buyer that they are working with personally.
Oh, my. Oh, my. So you know what, Kathleen, there's one on School Street. It's not right at the intersection. It's back a little bit. It has an ADU. And it was on the market for quite a while. It needs some work. Do you know which one I'm talking about? And they
It's
took it
not on
off
the
because
market
they didn't
right
want to
now.
bother
It's
with it over
next
the
to the
winter.
one that's on the market.
No, I think I know
Yes.
which one you're talking about.
But-
Yeah, I think I know
They
which one
told
you're
me
talking
last
about.
fall that they
Yeah.
took it off the market because they didn't want to deal with it over the winter. And that they were
Yeah.
going to put it back on in the spring.
Yeah, I
The lady who
have
owned
some
it.
other issues with it, actually, according to Ashley, and she was the listing agent. So I'm not really sure. I mean, the property next door to that, that's currently on the market, she actually just texted me since we've been on this meeting saying she just got an offer on it.
Well,
And when I was showing that property, we were speaking about the one next door that hadn't sold.
That's Houston's property.
Yeah.
Well, I mean it more generically is that it is the purchase of family units, which would mean we'd buy it and somehow we would operate it, or we would, yeah.
and you condoize it?
It's tricky. I'm just saying there's so few opportunities for multifamily in Wellfleet. Is there a mechanism by which we would be involved with it?
Fact that we should handle them as they come up. I mean, there's so few
Yeah.
that, even in dealing with Maya and Thor as a friend to them and as a friend to the person that they're selling it to, I help them facilitate that offer with no, not acting as a realtor. And I was like a fish out of water in terms of what's going on. I mean, it's like a boarding house, or was a boarding house, It's just a very bizarre situation.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know how to address the whole issue of managing properties. I'm not sure that that's something that towns do very well.
Right.
And it's something that I have no experience doing, so I wouldn't have anything to contribute there, or much to contribute there. So it might be a situation where, purchase, rehab, and dispose of, or if it's multifamily, purchase condo and dispose of, or do something like that. But I'm not sure I want to be in the position of unclogging sinks and stuff like that.
Right.
I
I mean,
agree.
if the properties downtown, can they be, I mean, in general, I think they can be divided. Am I correct? Some of them?
Are we talking about School Street again?
Well, that's
Well-
just as an example.
Well, in general, let's switch to the different example, which is the Bradford, which had historically been 8 apartments.
Right.
So it was a lawfully pre-existing non-conforming use. Wellfleet's zoning bylaw currently says 1 dwelling unit per lot, except for the AADU provision.
I
So
thought there was some difference in the central district, though. I thought, no?
could be,
That I
but
know
I
of.
suspect that every single multifamily dwelling in Wellfleet is a lawfully pre-existing one.
Although, Harry, what about 70 Commercial Street? Because wasn't that a captain's house that was a single family that then became those 4 condos?
Yeah, yeah, I think you're right. And I'm trying to think of what the difference is, because I did the condo documents for that, but.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking that through too, because obviously, why would that be allowed to happen?
Mhm.
Well, maybe it's a conversation for another meeting, but I think it's worth
Yeah.
exploring a little
Yeah.
bit.
Okay. So we'll put that on a future meeting agenda. So right now, what I've got for future meetings are basically follow-ups on the stuff that we've talked about today, plus the question of supporting an ADU bylaw, and a follow-up on the technical assistance grant.
And the
Question is, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, with the motion that we had about requesting the short-term rental tax, is that just, are you doing that, Harry?
Yep, I'll do that.
Okay.
So what
I
else
have
have I got?
another question, and I kind of thought maybe it was going to come up in our agenda and it didn't, so I don't know if it's appropriate, but I had conversation with the attorney that represents the estate that's trying to give the $25,000 donation.
Yep,
Not moved forward with anybody at all, because he's starting to be a little persnickety about the fact that he's not getting any response from the town of Wellfleet, and he's trying to give us $25,000 towards affordable housing.
who do I talk to?
Who did I speak to?
Who should I speak to?
Chris Fassett.
I don't know him or her.
He's an attorney that grew up in Provincetown. I mean, somebody has spoke with him because I've seen the woman's name. I knew he was talking about, is it Catherine Stillman?
Yep,
And I said to him, you know, is it, because he said, I'm trying to give the town $25,000 for affordable housing. I was like, I'm on it. I said, I'll respond to you tomorrow with what you have to do with that. But do we have a protocol? Because that is the last thing we want, that somebody wants to give us money and we're making it hard for them.
yeah, no, I think we need to jump right on that. So I'm certainly happy to speak with the town accountant to make sure that she does the right thing with the money and get back to that person and say, you know, this is who the check should be payable to and this is where to send it. Gary?
We had a request on the hotline, the housing hotline, for our tax ID, and I contacted Miriam and got the tax ID and sent it to them. I don't know if it wasn't the lawyer, but someone else working, but it was the same person.
Could be an
Same woman.
accountant or.
Harry, after the meeting, I will send you a email with
Well,
his.
let Harry be the contact person. I'm just saying we provided them with the tax ID, but
Yeah,
But
I'm
that's a
saying I will reach out to Harry with Chris's contact info.
Okay,
Gary, that's a different donation that you're talking about.
that's a different one?
Yes.
Okay.
Embarrassment of riches.
Whoa, this is great.
That's one
okay,
yet to
well,
come.
I can follow up on one or both of those. I can follow up on the Catherine Stillman one, or if you want me to follow up on the other one, I can do that also.
I'll forward you the email, Harry.
Okay, great. Okey doke. Next meeting? Date? And we have minutes. Those are the last two things we have.
Which do you want first?
Let's pick a meeting date. See if I can pop up a calendar here somewhere. I can grab yet another device. I got so many.
Weeks or 3 weeks?
I think probably.
Can I just say, if this committee wants to weigh in on the petitioned article, then that would have to be before the 6th. But if it's not something that this committee needs to vote on, then I'm not worried about it. But
Well, Monday, the 29th is 2 weeks from today.
Yeah.
That would be great, actually.
I'll check with Mike or check my tide chart to make sure he can participate. Okay, March 29th is okay with everybody?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
5:30-ish.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Minutes? I sent those out to you. Back-
yeah, I have
back-
one, there was one piece that, where you said that Elaine and Gary and I had spoken to Cape Cod Commission about something. I wasn't in on that.
Let's see. Cape Cod Commission, that must have been on
Like-
the,
You had my name in parentheses with question marks.
oh, I see. Okay, so I should strike you. That's in paragraph 7.
Yeah, that's the one.
Okay, so we'll strike the reference to Sharon there. Other corrections?
At the end, on this last sentence of item 2,
Yep,
it says, I don't actually know. Are we saying that if in fact that award is approved at town meeting, then we'll have funds available?
yeah, it's Mr. Sorkin noted that if the Community Preservation Act funds proposed to be transferred to the trust at the June 5th annual town meeting are transferred, probably should say approved, there would be
Approved,
funding at
right.
that time.
Then there will be funding available.
Or as
So-
of July 1st.
Yeah,
You wanna change transferred to approved?
right.
Mm.
And it's probably, you're right, Elaine, probably after July
Okay.
1st.
Other additions, corrections, editorial comments? Nope. Okay, how about a motion on the February 22 minutes
So moved.
as corrected?
Second,
Gary. Let's see, as corrected. Let's see, so all those in favor, Kathleen,
I,
Sharon,
I,
Gary,
aye.
Lane,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
chair votes aye, so that's a 6-0 roll call vote. But before we adjourn, I see Marcus has been hanging around for an hour and a half. You have anything you want to say, Marcus?
No, it's great to see you all. And I've just been following the 95 Lawrence Road project for a few years now. And I'm just want to get more involved. And the one question I had, I don't know if it's appropriate for this committee, is over the past few years, we've developed a model for the affordable housing that follows all the guidelines, and we want to make ourselves attractive to a developer, and are wondering if there's a more detailed site plan available of the 6 acres, or should we just wait for the RFP to come out? Or I know the one I downloaded from the Board of Selectmen meeting last week, it was kind of like an aerial with lots of trees and not really, we couldn't really tell like what the land was. And I'm wondering if it's possible if you could post a site plan that has a more detailed topography of the site, because we're trying to do a site fit of our scheme, that we're reaching out to a couple of developers in hopes that they will include us on their team to answer the RFP.
Okay, that's really the 95 Lawrence Road Task Force. We're just not quite there yet the trust really isn't quite there yet as an entity. We're really kind of still organizing.
Okay.
I don't have anything more than what's in the draft RFP. I don't know if there's more available elsewhere or not.
Not that I know of. I don't think there's going to be a more detailed site plan included. We haven't done one as part of the, there's an old map from when they put in the well at the school and when they were going to do the water tower. I don't know if that would have the kind
Oh,
of,
that would be good. Yeah, I mean, the water tower one would be great.
I don't know if that has the
that should have
contours
those.
we'd be talking about. We can ask our consultant, but yeah, I hear you.
Okay.
Okay, noted.
Yeah, that would be much appreciated. Yeah.
Somebody who'd like to offer a motion to adjourn? Since
Harry, before we adjourn, the
Sure.
tide is at 6:30 on the 29th. You want
Tide
to
be high or
me,
low?
Low.
yeah,
Low at 6:30?
Yeah, so do we just want to pick a time for the sake of argument?
Want to do it earlier? Or does that interfere with the work, other people's work commitments? Because if Mike's working, it will be at low tide.
Yeah.
I
right.
thought, actually, Gary, I thought it's 7, my chart shows 7:10.
I have to admit, my only authority on this is the Max Seafood.
Oh.
Pie chart.
It's still late, that's obviously, it's a late tide.
Oh, you want to check with Mike and see what might work?
Yeah, let's see, Monday, the 29th.
7:10.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
7:09,
I-
and it's a really good low tide. It's a
Yeah,
negative 1.3.
yep. Yeah, it's 6:45 in the morning and 7:09 in the evening, it's low. So, that's tough for Mike because he said even 2 hours before the tide is,
Yeah.
still doesn't work for him.
Yeah.
I think what I may is, just so we don't drag this meeting out any further than we've already done it, is I can email him and, I can do a doodle poll with some alternate dates depending. Is it generally during working hours a problem for people?
Not for me, but
Generally during working hours is much more of a challenge for me. That day specifically, I have a listing going in on Thursday and I'm accepting offers by noon that day. And so I will be tied up coordinating all that.
Okay, so,
I know in advance at this time of year, I mean, like if we did it the next day or whatever, I could try to set the time aside and work around it.
okay, well, that gives me enough flexibility to try and find something right around that date. And why don't we just leave it that way for now?
Good, yep.
A
Yeah.
motion to adjourn would be in order.
So moved.
Gary,
Second,
Kathleen. Okay, motion to adjourn, Kathleen,
aye.
Sharon,
all right.
Gary,
Aye.
Elaine,
I.
Jim,
Aye.
chair votes aye, 6-0. It is, we are adjourned at 7:14 PM.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
all.
Thank
Stay
you.
healthy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Everyone.
Okay, we're gonna end the recording. Bye now.
Bye.